Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strike Zone with St. Paul Saints Manager George Tsamis. Strike Zone is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the St. Paul manager questions about the Saints, baseball, or sports in general, or just seek the skipper's wisdom. This week he talks to us in great length about what happened in this year's World Series. He discussed a little NFL with us and gives us some of his insights on what's going on in the league so far this year. So let's get right to Strike Zone. Okay, so we'd like to welcome back Manager George Tsamis with us. So, George, let's first of all begin by talking about team updates you have for us.
Yeah, okay, first of all, go Vikings. How about that game, right? They're playing good. They're looking good, and they're going to go back home next week, and then they have the Packers in a couple weeks. So the Vikings playing well. It's an exciting time for them, and hopefully they can keep it going. And in regards to our team updates, we're hoping that we get a schedule out by the end of the week. I'm not sure if it'll happen, but hopefully that happens because it's always exciting to get the schedule.
For fans that don't know, that is actually created by the commissioner of the league himself. I think handwritten, if I remember hearing correctly.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure, but I believe so. And so just looking forward to it coming out.
I bet. This week we have a lot of World Series-related questions for you there, so we'll begin with that particular spot. Our first question comes from Ken from St. Paul, who says, the Royals are so resilient. How impressed were you with the way that they won?
What a very impressive team, and and winning, and you know what? I think I've told you before. They don't have any superstars on the team. They just have a lot of hungry players that play the game the right way, and Eric Hosmer, he seems to be pretty clutch. He comes up with some big hits over and over, and and Lorenzo Cain as well. What a nice player he is as well, and that Ben Zobrist trade, that's somebody that you'd love to have a guy like that on your team that just comes up with big hits, a lot of doubles, and just a good, solid all-around player. And but the Royals deserved it, and you know what? I'm thinking that maybe the Twins, we're going to see that from the Twins here in the next year or so. I think that they can do what the Royals did.
I would gather what you really had to like about the Royals was you're a big proponent of like the two-out hit, the hitting with runners on base, and I think somebody was saying that their average with nobody on base is like 207 or something, but with on base is like 316. So
that's the thing. That's what you want, the clutch guys, and and I've said all along, anybody can get a hit with nobody on base, but when the guys are on base and in those big situations, clutch time, they come through, and I think, again, that's Eric Hosmer. His numbers with guys on base were outstanding, and what a gutsy play by him to score that run. And that was so dangerous and so risky. But you know what? He took a chance, and it was a great gamble, and what an exciting game. What an exciting World Series. I think the Mets, it's going to be tough because I think they gave some things away there, and it's going to be tough to get over, but the Royals were excellent.
Speaking of that, Len from Bloomington asked of you, do you think Daniel Murphy will be remembered more for the big 6 straight games with a home run or for making 2 huge errors that may have cost his team the World Series?
You would hope that he is remembered for the straight games with the home runs, because what he did was you don't see that every day. You don't see it at all, and it was excellent hitting all those home runs, and it's just unfortunate that those errors were big times and big errors, but you hope he's a solid player. Maybe he wasn't the best defensive player out there, but I think we all knew that going in, and but I think the Mets, hopefully they have him back, and he'll hit his 280, 290, 300, like he usually does, and again, it's just you hope he's remembered for the home runs, because they wouldn't have got to the World Series without him.
It's sad that people are remembered in that way. I think of Bill Buckner, for example, that what a great career, but they're going to remember that ball.
That's the way it works, though. That's the way the sports world works. You can do good things. You can do a lot of great things. You can do 90% great things, and with that 10%, when you make 10% mistakes, people seem to remember that and want to let you know about that, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way the sports world works.
Tyler from Egan asks of you, he was amazed that no one seemed to be able to touch the Mets starting staff, but the Royals found a way. He just didn't get it.
Well, the Mets pitchers, they're pretty good. Those four guys they're pretty good, and they're young too. They're going to be good for a long time. And but again, the Royals just solid, and they just get some big hits when they need to. And again, the Mets pitchers shut them down. They're good though. You got to give them credit. But again, you got to give the Royals even a little more credit for coming up with with the big hits when they had to.
Absolutely. It was extremely impressive how they just seemed to get hit after hit when it really mattered. That's outstanding.
But that's what it's all about, though. That's what it's about. Getting big guys. Remember the big hits with guys on base, and and even in that ninth inning, it's 2-0, and Hosmer came up with the big double. That's just clutch.
Absolutely. Marco from Plymouth would like to know, do you think Terry Collins made a huge mistake leaving in Matt Harvey last night?
You know what? And that's, again, what we just talked about. People are always remembered for the mistakes, whatever. No, I don't. He had a shutout. He was cruising. He was dealing. I think and I know that he made the decision, I guess, to take him out, but then Harvey went over and talked to him and tried to talk his way to stay in the game. And I thought it was the right decision to send him back out. And obviously the fans did as well, because you heard them chanting in the eighth inning that they wanted him back out there. And but it didn't work out, and so now we're going to hear about that, the second guessing. And again, that's the way it works. And I know about the second guessing. I hear it all the time as well. And I think there are a lot of managers and coaches that hear about it if it doesn't work out. So I thought it was the right move to send him back out, and just Matt Harvey's pretty good, and he was cruising, and again, obviously the way they lost Game 1 of the with the home run in the ninth inning that Gordon hit, I know your closer's great, but the guy was cruising, and it just didn't work out for him.
I would assume, as a pitcher yourself and as a guy who's a manager, that you know when to trust your pitcher. And if you're a guy like Matt Harvey, who's earned a lot of respect in the first place, came to you and said, "Hey, I'm ready to go," well, you just don't take him out.
Absolutely, and I've been in that situation before when you're after an inning, you're not sure if you want to send the guy back out or bring a reliever in for him, and the guy comes off the field and he tells you, "Hey, I want to go back out," and you like guys like that want the ball to finish the game or to go back out for that next inning. And it's a tough call for a manager, but when you have a guy like that wants it so bad and feels good and feels strong, sometimes you just go with your gut and listen to what he has to say and send him back out. Because there's other times when that's happened where it's worked out, but it just didn't work out last night.
Cindy from Anoka would like to know, would you have told Volquez that his father had died before the start of Game 1?
I don't know the exact details. From what I heard, that I guess the wife had asked for them not to say anything to him. So if that's the case, then I think you honor what she said and you don't say anything. But if that wasn't the case, then I think it would have been the right thing to do, to tell him. But I think they respected her wishes, and that's what they did. And he pitched good too. So it's obviously a sad thing that he lost his father, but he threw the ball real well.
Craig from Richfield asks, Don Mattingly didn't seem to be the right fit for the Dodgers. Do you think he will do much better with Miami?
He had, I guess it depends how good the players play. He had some big money players out there in Los Angeles, some real good pitchers, and you know what? The Marlins, they had some injuries this year too, with losing their best pitcher, and I think it comes down to how good these guys play, and I think he'll do well. It's again, I know he took some criticism, and but again, that's the way it works. I hope he does well over there, and maybe he can hit for him, because he was a great hitter when he played, right?
Yeah,
I got the face.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was something else, that guy. Well, what a hitter he was.
Donnie Baseball. I'm curious from your perspective too, as a manager, that and you know, being a huge Bill Belichick fan that you are, is that I look at like a guy like Terry Collins who didn't do very well in Houston, and then he turns the Mets around. I think sometimes people are unfair about a manager's first shot and thinking they don't deserve another.
Yeah, it's got to give him a little credit. You know, it's got him to the World Series. They were close, and there's some people saying, you know, okay, they lost the World Series because, well, that game one loss. They were up in the ninth inning in game one with a great closer on the mound, and he gave up a home run. So who knows if that didn't happen if they win the World Series. You know, it's just those losses, 3 of those losses were pretty tough and pretty devastating. Collins did a good job, and sometimes you got to give him credit. It just didn't work out.
Absolutely, because he sure gave his effort. There was no doubt about that at all.
And I like the way he goes about his business. You know, he handles his business, and it was very happy for him to see him get into the World Series and see how happy he was. Because you know, people say that I don't really smile too often, but you know, he doesn't smile very often either. And it was good to see him. You know, once when they got to the World Series, when they beat the Cubs, and how happy he was, and it's happy for him that he got to the World Series. And again, one pitch, one big hit away from them winning the World Series.
Our last questions for the show are focused on George's favorite subject now, the NFL. So let's first of all begin with Craig from Richfield, again, who has another question for you. He says that Teddy Bridgewater seems to be the real deal. You got to like him, don't you?
Absolutely. He's excellent. That was a nice comeback. That was a nice win. They were down, and I know the Bears, you know, obviously they're having a tough season, but they played well and went in late in the game. But there's 4 quarters, and happy that the Vikings pulled it out. And Bridgewater, he's going to be a good, solid quarterback for a long, long time. We can be talking about him for 10 years being a good, solid quarterback. And so glad they came back and won that game, and now they're going to be home up in the Rams this week, I believe, and before the big game with the Packers. So we keep it going, and their team is good, and just solid defense, solid quarterback, excellent running back. Diggs is emerging as a good receiver. I like Kyle Rudolph as well, too. So good for the Vikings, and keep it rolling.
Cowboys hater, who's had a couple of questions for us in the past, comes back with this one. The Cowboys have not won since Romo got hurt. Do you think he is that important to the team, or there are other issues keeping them from winning?
Yeah, he's pretty good. You know, when you lose your starting quarterback, it's tough to replace. I don't care what team you are. You can name a team. You lose your starting quarterback, you're in trouble. And you know what? Over the years, Tony Romo, he seemed to make that big mistake, that big interception in clutch time, and in the fourth quarter, he'd say, "Oh, here comes that big interception." Up until last year, he didn't make those mistakes, and he was what an excellent season he had. And but obviously losing him this year, it's tough when you lose them. They're hard to replace, and it seems like it's tough to have a good quality quarterback this year. They seem to get less and less every year, those good, solid quarterbacks.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting that you probably could have said, you know, maybe even just 3 or 4 seasons ago, that there were like 12 or 13 really good quarterbacks. I really can only think of maybe 4 or 5 that are playing really well this year.
Yeah, it's you know what? Bridgewater can keep playing the way he is, and he's going to get better and better. And but hey, still, how about Tom Brady though? He's something else. Every week he just does something great again, doesn't he? But we're running out of great quarterbacks.
Absolutely, I'm in agreement with you on that one. Our next question comes from Taylor from St. Paul, who says Le'Veon Bell got hurt Sunday. The Steelers are done, right?
That was a devastating loss because I watched that game too. I have the Sunday ticket, so I watch most of the games, and you try to keep up and watch them all. And it's a major blow to lose them, but even though he made two crucial mistakes with those 2 big interceptions that Big Ben threw yesterday, he's good, and he's gonna he'll keep him in it. And again, those 2 interceptions he threw, you don't see that every day. You see him make great play after great play, and avoid sacks and pop out of there and make great throws. And people think the Steelers are done, but I guess it was winning the division they're in trouble. But the wild card is still anybody's thing, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers got it done because their quarterback, their receivers are excellent, and so we'll see.
Our next question comes from Walt from West St. Paul, who wonders, why are the Ravens so bad, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a nice win yesterday, though, and they pulled it out. And again, it's just week to week. You just never know week to week. One week the team looks great, and we look at the Raiders now. All of a sudden, a few weeks ago, it's like, all right, the same Raiders, but now they're just killing everybody, killing the good teams, and so week to week, you just don't know what's going to happen. And the Ravens are struggling now, but it's a long season. We're at the halfway mark almost, right? So
yes, we are right there.
Yeah, we'll see. And look at, like I said, we talked about the Dallas's division with the Giants and the Redskins and the Eagles. It's just week to week, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think the Houston Texans are aren't they like a game out of first? And,
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
It's just somebody getting on a roll and getting hot, and you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think the Colts are in first place too, right? So it's just you just got to go out there and get into the playoffs, and then once you get in, you don't know what's going to happen. Again, baseball, football. I don't think anybody thought that the Mets were going to be in the World Series, and even the Cubs making the playoffs, and look what they've done. So it's week to week, things can change.
You were mentioning about the Raiders. That Derek Carr looks like he's the real deal too.
Yeah, how about that? He's something else, and the Jets were a good team. Just almost went into New England and beat them, and yesterday they just got dominated. The Raiders, excellent. Their defense pretty good, and you like to see that in Oakland. Those fans are crazy and they're into it and loud, and it's nice to see the Raiders getting back to where they used to be. And when we grew up in the Bay Area, we saw how great they were back in the day. But it's been a long time since they've been good, and it's good to see.
There's definitely no fans like Raider fans, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Let's see. Our next question comes from Gary from Medina, who says, do you see Peyton Manning rebounding after his big Sunday night performance?
You know what? Everybody thought he was done. I even read the other day they're thinking about benching him. I think we heard that last year after Week 4 when Brady had that lousy game against the Chiefs, and people thought they were done, and look what happened. He looked great last night. I was trying to watch the World Series and watch the Packers-Denver game and stuff to keep up with both, but he looked great, and the arm strength looked a little better, and made some nice plays, and that was a surprise, that game. I thought the Packers were going to just go in there and take care of business, but it's Peyton Manning looked good, so maybe he's not done yet. So we'll see what happens with that, and I guess they have New England in a few weeks going into Denver, so that should be exciting as well.
Looking at the college football world for a moment, Calvin from Mankato wonders, Skipper, did you see that bogus play in the Miami-Duke game? They should take away that victory from Miami, don't you think?
I don't watch much of college football, but I did see the highlight of it once, and I heard everybody complaining about a guy was down, and there were a bunch of clips in the back, and that was one crazy play, and that was the Stanford Cal play almost, where all those laterals, and then I even read that the officiating crew got suspended a couple games. So I guess they messed it up. You don't see those kind of plays every day, and again, I only saw the highlight once. So did they review it, and then after they reviewed it, and they still just let it go?
Correct.
They couldn't see that the guy was down.
No, they just stuck with it regardless, which is kind of surprising because it was at Duke. You'd have thought at least somebody would have seen in the home team there would have been being shafted, but.
Yeah, in football, baseball, and I know they have instant replay, but still, it still always seems to be that we don't trust it. Something happens where, okay, well, all right, that looks like they should overturn it or whatever, and it doesn't get overturned. And again, it even happened again in the Dallas game yesterday, where it looked like, all right, it clearly shows that the guy was short, and they gave him a touchdown anyways. You just don't. Still don't trust the instant replay. Still don't trust it.
Yeah, it is interesting how that winds up working out. Our last question for this week comes from a person identifying himself as a big NFL fan who asked, the Falcons look so unbeatable early on, now they lose to Tampa Bay. Isn't that just crazy?
Yeah, pretty much, and it's that's a surprise too. Again, week to week, you just never know what's going to happen. Team could be a big underdog, and you just never know. I don't think anybody picked Tampa. You would think Atlanta would win at home, but nope. It's just the way the sports world works.
It is pretty crazy out there. Well, Skipper, thanks for joining us this week, and we hope we have a schedule to talk about next week for us there.
Yeah, hopefully the next time we talk, we have it, and hopefully the next time we talk, we'll talk about another Vikings win and going into that Packers game.
Sounds great. Talk to you next week, George. We want to thank Manager George Tsamis for joining us on Strike Zone this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Saints manager, please send them to us at askgeorge@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's askgeorge@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give the skipper a little time to review those questions before we record the show on Monday afternoon. I want to thank you for joining us this week. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll look for you next week on Strike Zone.